that took place with mankind. Amazingly, many ancient nations such as the Phoenicians had no written language or culture of their own. Instead they borrowed from everyone they conquered. They altered the original cultures and languages of these peoples, saying they were perfecting them. What audacity! In the Western world we credit our language, English, much of our symbolism like the phoenix, our current death and resurrection doctrine, and many other things to the Phoenicians, who were really the Philistines. Philadelphia was the original state capital of the United States. The biggest mistake a conquered people can make is to begin to imagine they were never defeated, thus placing their trust in the assailant. We are seeing the results of that now. Our government, spiritual leaders, and instructors have been telling a multitude of lies, many without the slightest knowledge of it. Some are sworn traitors avowed to something much more sinister. We mistakenly have trusted the same system that once brutally annihilated everything that had its own will, so they could indoctrinate their falsehood. Reason 7. There are traitors amongst us with phenomenal resources that have avowed to something far more devious than can normally be conceived. Left unchecked for centuries, they have finally come to the conclusion of an agenda scheduled for the near future. Who will face them? What now has to be done in order for us to discover our true potential, as we have to put our real past back together? During the times pharaohs, czars, kings, and shahs despoiled the lands, they found it most important to alter the history, culture, and language of the people they conquered. This is how they gained a monopoly over social and spiritual power, the latter being the controller of the former. Most of these factions served the unseen hand very far back in our history, so they generally, 14 PAGE, had the same agenda. Removing a person's spiritual belief in themselves leaves them powerless. All of mysticism has effect based on the belief of the wielder of such power. In ancient times many had such exemplary belief in their internal power, symbols, and talismans they were very difficult to conquer, much less indoctrinate. The tyrants of ancient times sent entire armies to subdue them, and often entire armies were laid to waste. Many eluded those armies by going underground, deep into the mountains, and some even left this dimension. After all, what does killing mind-controlled soldiers really solve? The greatest adversary to the human race has been the human race. No matter how much evidence we find that links devils, aliens, spirits and various other life forms to the corrosion of our natural state, in all these stories you will find human traitors that gave them access to our inner circles. The entire human race was a collective brother and sisterhood capable of maintaining contact with one another across entire planetary systems. We were grouped more commonly as all humanoids, not black man, white man, yellow man, etc. It is virtually impossible to break apart from the outside anything as strong as human will. This book is not about pointing the finger. This book is about understanding our original state, how it was altered, how to grow back into it, and even excel beyond its original potential. At this moment we are in a degraded state. It is only pride that keeps the individual from admitting this. Power now lies mostly in monetary wealth, not spiritual essence. One will always pass away, the other is eternal. Common sense is not common. This may sound a little confusing, especially this early on, however, the earlier you see this the better. When they decided to make the names for the planets in English, they really did begin to turn things in an opposite direction. Searching for other names indigenous tribes used for the planets will turn up almost nothing. Some may think this is because in ancient times we had no knowledge of the cosmos, and of course this proves to be untrue. We are told the Sumerians, Egyptians, and a few indigenous tribes from Africa have the only details of the names given to the planets in ancient times. Whatever the case, we can be sure that what we call the planet Saturn in modern times may not be actually referring to the planet with the rings, but more of an idea of evil Sat, brought forth from Ur. Our consciousness, when not hindered, will always look to the sky for answers. Our spirit is from the sky, or rather far out in space, while our bodies are indeed flesh and will remain here as dust. When we innocently inquire about the names of planets, stars, and moons, wanting to learn more, we get names that are tainted with deception. The vibration of Ur is that of an animal, In fact, so-called early man depicted the entire cosmos as animal forms rather than the much greater concept space stands for, which is beyond normal life on Earth. It is highly unlikely we will find a horse on the moon, but this has not stopped them from naming the quadrants of the moon mare, like nightmare. 15 PAGE. Reason 8 quadrants of the moon are called mare. The commoner would pronounce this just as it sounds, esoterically it is pronounced Mary. The names of spots on the moon are riddled with a deep significance to its origin and use. Unlike most modern church participants, those initiated into various magical societies evoke angels and spirits all the time. They do this by various means. One key element involves drawing perfect stars inside of circles or squares. A symbol drawn is physical proof of one's intent. A perfect star is often made with a tool used by the elite called an angle. This word angle is an anagram for angel. The tool itself is the shape of an L, that's right, EL. If you notice when drawing a star, it consists of straight lines. Straight lines are opposite to nature, which itself is a composite of spheres and circles. The body itself contains no straight lines. These straight lines are known as masculine while the curved lines are feminine. It is known that fleshly beings are categorized as feminine despite their sexual orientation, while heavenly beings are known as masculine due to their strong ethereal nature, which can even withstand the force of being in close proximity to the sun. 16 PAGE. Reason an angle. The tool seen below the Masonic G in the shape of an L is used to draw straight lines, while the protractor above is used to make the perfect circle to create talismans. There is recorded knowledge of 1/3 of the angels in the sphere of Saturn, rebelling. Those fallen ones came to Earth and intermingled with woman, thus creating the term mankind, meaning kind of like man but not entirely. No matter how fictitious this may seem, it is in fact true. These beings go under the names of Rephaim, Nephilim, Anunnaki, Titans, Giants, and Danites. Along with their offspring, they make up the legends of various mythological creatures of various titles. This resulted from the union of the angels with not only the women but also with the animals. These offspring became known as demigods, meaning half god, half man or animal. They possessed various powers that caused the indigenous tribes of the time to worship the supreme creators, which was far from true. The head of the fallen angels would place the demigods over the people to rule them in a hierarchy or pyramid structure. They would remain in contact with the demigods from their habitations in various constellations such as Orion. Ancient Aram indicates the name of Orion originally being Nephila, meaning Nephilim. Orion is depicted as a giant man for this reason. There will be lots of Orion sinks as we go on. They have guided much of what we have seen in the media as children growing up until this very day. As a child, I remember watching a cartoon called Fraggle Rock, which was about the life of the Fraggles, especially their encounters with the giants called ogres of the land. In pre-Christian Scandinavian, Orion's belt is known as Friggle's Rock, no doubt the origin of 17 PAGE. The name of the cartoon. There is a heavy amount of Scandinavian in our language. Reason 9. The daughters of Cain, with whom the fallen angels had companied, conceived, but they were unable to bring forth their children, and many died. Of the children in the womb, some died and others split open the bellies of their mothers, coming forth by the navel. They thought evil continually, and God bore with them for a time. Entire material and ethereal kingdoms below the third heaven were erected and hewn for their spiritual and physical residence. The task of building these lofty havens fell to the humans in this world and the one to come. What a cruel treatment! Expansive kingdoms the slaves did build, but the fact was the humans were in the lower dimensions with a bad case of memory loss, only being allowed at times just to worship the god and bask in its false light. Those were the favored ones. The others lived much worse than when truly alive in unity with the Most High. Thus these lower planes became known as the netherworld, Araluamenti Duatilizium, Sheol, Hades as the Matrix, Imperishable, Devashanic Plane, Markuth, Maya, Lemuria, a place where injustice was allowed to rule through Ijji, Neters, Baalim, Valkyries, Mes, and Manes for a time, since everything has its place in contrast. 18 PAGE. Reason 10. Man has been the constructor for these gods, building them high places so they may enjoy What the humans have gotten in return are lifetimes of being a servant with little reward.